I feel like it's just become a lifestyle for me. It's not something with conventional diet culture of thinking like this diet culture kind of mindset of torturing yourself to get to that point. It's since very early on in my journey, probably around the time that I realized that other people needed my help and support as well. I made it an enjoyable part of my life that just complemented everything I already did.
Welcome to Locala Podcast, everybody. I'm Lisa Anderson, your host and publisher of Locala Magazine, and we are continuing our journey of the June 2023 issue in the magazine, which celebrates the beginning of our third year for our magazine. Our podcast started back in September of 2022, so we're doing a callbacks issue for some people that were back in, mostly 2021 issues of our magazine. Today, we have Vicki Sheerin, who is the coach for the fast-focused lifestyle. I had to think about that one for a second, make sure I got it right. But she was in our February 2021 issue, and I'm so glad to have her back on the couch because she's got a big story to tell us, and oh man, we could not fit her original story in those few words that we put in the magazine. So welcome back, Vicki.
Thank you. Oh, it's so nice to be back. I was just thinking it was about, in February it was a year, but just how much that magazine article being featured on the cover, like how much that significantly meant to me and the ripples that are really still continuing to happen as a result of it. Oh, that's
fantastic. Mm-hmm. I love it. And you get to, I see you put your cover image on some of your promotional material, and I love that so much.
It was a good picture. That was a good picture. I had a good, yellow dress kind of day, and just like I was vibing.
You were vibing that day. Yeah, you were. I love that yellow too.
Yeah,
I actually see you quite often because that's the magazine that my significant other has in his office that's like front and focused.
Yay.
And so I walk into his office and I see you.
That's awesome. Oh, that's so great.
Yeah. So what have you been up to this last year?
I have been keeping busy with continuing to build my consulting with the fasting focused lifestyle. I still have been an artistry business owner since 2016 with my business Sheerin Artistry LLC. So I, with that, like the article that you featured me before in the magazine about the couch sessions with Olivia Ortiz. With that event, I did like body painting, but I also do like any kind of artistry commission work, paint parties, face painting, like anything artistry is my jam. Yeah. I'm totally all for it. So I think the balance between health and art can really kind of go together because doing things you love, like minimizing the amount of stress and just having time, especially with adapting a fasting-focused lifestyle and utilizing your free time in things maybe that you're interested in with art. And that's my passion. It's been my passion ever since I was very, very little. So I'm really happy that changes and journeys in life can kind of, be a way for me to enjoy spending my time, but as well as providing a, monetary benefit to help sustain my, day-to-day life, especially as a mom with 2 kids.
Yeah. And if anybody's not familiar with the couch sessions, it's basically an artist and a musician that share the stage with Olivia Ortiz, who is the hostess for that particular program. And it's a seasonal thing. And it's really quite fun and interesting. And you were, I think you were season 2020 or 2021?
I think it was the later one.
It was probably 2021. Yeah, back, I think it shut down, didn't it, for 2020? I'm not even sure.
I believe so.
Yeah. So, so we got to talk a little bit about your art, and the art Q&A is just a little bit of who you are, just a little taste. And so sometimes I bring those artists in for a full article so we can actually get to really know you guys.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we did because you were featured in our health issue, and because you had a big weight journey, and but your story was so much bigger than that.
Oh, yeah.
And we talked a lot about the loss of your spouse and stuff. So can you tell us how you're doing nowadays with both?
With all of that, I feel like it's just become a lifestyle for me. It's not something with conventional diet culture of thinking like this diet culture kind of mindset of torturing yourself to get to that point. It's since very early on in my journey, probably around the time that I realized that other people needed my help and support as well. I made it an enjoyable part of my life that just complemented everything I already did. So it was something I could seamlessly integrate in. And with the weight loss, so many other ripples and changes like mindset, physicality, like way of life, measure of stress, like all those things were positively impacted because, I get goosebumps, were positively impacted because of this deliberate, just natural, innate change and way of life that I adapted for myself. And the ripples still continue to happen. But as I was saying before, I love seeing those ripples in people. So when something with my story and I share, if that affects anybody else positively, and I see and I read and I connect with all these people around the world, that really reaffirms like it's important to do what I'm doing. Like as much as I have hard days from being a widow and like having my sadness and like grief with that, I see comments and feedback and messages and things from people that I connect with I may have never met, may never meet in my lifetime, but I know I've connected enough with them to know that these ripples are changing their lives because of the decision that I made back in 2018 to decide to, be sick and tired of being sick and tired and just go. I keep getting goosebumps because I feel like that can change the world like one person at a time. And I'm seeing it happen and it moves me to tears. Like I cry a lot. And I apologize to folks on my podcast as well. Like I'm cry warning, but like it moves me to tears because that could be an additional 5, 10, however many additional lives for them and their family. And that ripples continue to happen. And who's to say that like they're changing their health, that it ripples and affects other people in their circle. So it's like, this beautiful, like non-sketchy kind of health pyramid benefit awesomeness. Like it's just continuing to ripple outward. And that's what I want. I want that so much for folks to know that they can fix their health.
That's so amazing. Mm-hmm. Well, I know people can read the original article, but honestly, I remember talking to you and I remember the interview and I would just love for you to kind of dive into where your journey started because I think hearing it in your own words, and I know they can probably go to your podcast too, but let's get them over there with this one and hear your story a little bit on how you got started with that and what you had to go through while you were doing that as well.
Gotcha. So my journey, to kind of preface a bit, I'm a middle child. I have older and younger sister. So from very early age, and I apologize again, I feel like I'm going to cry because I feel it in my voice.
You know what? We've got tissue somewhere in here.
Oh, beautiful. I definitely feel like I'm going to need them.
There we go.
So I'm a middle child, and from a very early age, I felt, and maybe it was just my own interpretation, I felt like I didn't belong, like I wasn't pretty enough. And from very early on, I found comfort in food and was not able to have an emotionally healthy way to cope with my emotions from a very early age. When I was 16, my mom passed away at the age of 36, and she had gotten what I feel has given to me with the mindset and belief that I have with not wanting to have any alterations or surgeries, like why I feel so firm in my conviction right now with like not having weight loss surgery, not feeling like I need to adjust skin in any way. She had breast implants, and in January of, I think it was 2000, and that September, they got infected and just got into her bloodstream and it killed her very quickly. After losing my mom, going to college and just feeling like, again, eating my feelings, not coping and dealing with anything. Well, my weight just continued to balloon up year over year over year. And that became like, oh, yep, Vicki's just the big girl. I was so used to hearing, oh, Vicki's just the big girl. Like I'm 5'11", so I'm really tall, but I was tall and big. And that was always like, that Vicki, she's like, ugh. But meanwhile, my sisters were always like, oh, I feel like they got the more positive attention, and I kind of kept to myself and ate a lot in secret, ate while people were sleeping, took extra and hiding food, and just my behavior with comforting myself was always food. It was always food. It was never enough. And when I was done with college in New Hampshire in 2007, I moved back down here to Locala with my grandparents, my mother's parents, and their healths were horrible. Like, I love them, obviously, still both, but their healths were horrible, completely almost totally sedentary. Really, the only time they got up and going anywhere was to go get food. And seeing their health deteriorate and the way that they commiserated over my mom's passing was every single day. Sorry. It was every single day, like the day that she had just died. And it was so much, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
It was so much perpetuating in grief that I know as my mom's daughter that she would, I colorful language warning, like, I don't know. Okay. I would be so pissed if, like, I knew my mom would be pissed to see my grandparents willingly let themselves go and just have like so much fresh, immediate, I don't want to process this, I don't want to deal with this, but it's in my face and I'm going to let it overwhelm me. Grief every day. So when I had the opportunity to, I moved out with, my now late husband, and from me moving out, they continued to spiral. And it was only a matter of like a few years that first my grandfather got sick very quickly, hospital-acquired pneumonia, and he was gone. And I knew as soon as my grandfather was close to passing that my grandmother would like lose it because they were together for like 55, 56 years. So they were like, but my grandfather's passing was hard. My mother's passing was hard. The hardest one was my grandmother because of the way that her death affected my eating. It was like full, I imagine like a city fire hydrant and somebody just busts it open and it's just everywhere. Yeah. That was me with food. Like, I could not have enough. I remember standing at my pantry one night, brand new unopened bag of family-sized bag of Cheetos. I like emotionally blacked out in finding that my grandmother was going to be passing relatively soon. I think this was like around her time of just getting into hospice. And it was like she developed dementia. She was saying and behaving like totally abnormal. And I know it's dementia, but it was like, it was the first time I've ever seen it. It tore me apart. Yeah. And I remember standing and just inhaling this entire bag of Cheetos. And I think that was the day, that was Mother's Day, when her first spoken words to me were, I want to die. Like, hi, Nana, happy Mother's Day, I love you. She says, I want to die. Yeah. And that like, it was like, whoa, okay. She passed on the 1st of June of 2018. And then I went into a downward spiral. And that August, I remember waking up and seeing myself in this full-length mirror. And it was like, I had the just feeling that I'm going to die. If I don't do something, I'm going to die. Yeah. And I just immediately saw my kids and I was like, this is not going to happen. I'm going to take action. What I knew previously at the time was keto. And I had been a weight loss coach for a partial meal replacement plan called Ideal Protein. So I was familiar with like keto and I thought I was going to do keto. I went down a YouTube rabbit hole and I was like, oh, let me just because I wanted to do it my way. I wanted to do plant-based because I have been meat-free since 2014. Okay. So I was like, okay, let me do that. And then just finding a testimonial on water fasting got me super curious. I'm like, I want to try this. I want to give this a go. It looked like super sketchy, but like I was like really excited and nervous about it. The testimonial was like 30 days and he did with just water. And I watched more and more videos as YouTube recommends. And then before I knew it, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to adapt the first level of fasting, which is like a 16-8. So all I did was I did a 16-8 method for 2 weeks. And I know I was at a heavy starting weight and I was probably, if not at or above 400 pounds at that point. Because when I'm at that point, like it was like a mental thing. I didn't check. Yeah. I measured on my start date. And then 2 weeks later, I had shed 21 pounds in 2 weeks. Wow. So I knew I was onto something. So I was like, okay, we're going to stick with this and just keep it going. And the more that I kept up with it and enjoying learning about the process of what's going on in my body and why this is such a instinctive kind of behavior that your body likes to utilize, it got me more excited the further along that I went. Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. So you wound up, and I think you lost weight since we sat down and talked.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know.
I think it still like fluctuates. I notice, and I still have folks that I connect with my updates in my loose skin, because I think that's one thing that, as much as we don't want to say like, oh, we're vain, like we care about the way that we look. And yes, we should to a certain extent. I get a lot of questions with folks, and there's this term with fasting called autophagy, where it's like programmed cell death, where like your cells, unused, damaged, broken cells, I say broken cells, are just consumed by the body, and your body's able to utilize them for fuel, and whatever's waste gets excreted out. And with the term of autophagy and loose skin, and how much of a concern that is for people that have similar amount of body weight to shed as I do, there's still healing and things going on with me, because I'm still fasting. Like, I'm in a fasted state right now every day, and I love it. And this is like my Vicki, woo, like, let's go time, because it's truly like, it obviously is something that's going to help you with weight loss. So much mental, emotional stability comes from this as a result of this process, because of the way that it affects and just kind of balances everything out from within. But I love talking to folks about like how beneficial it is for the excess skin, because you don't have to get that skin surgery that people are so paranoid and afraid for.
Yeah. So you, when we talked last time, we did go into your, the loss of your husband. And I won't take you down that rabbit hole this time. But I do want to know, because you still talk about getting some widow brain and stuff like that. So I want to know how your lifestyle is working for you as far as helping you through those times, and how are your kids doing?
My kids are awesome. My children are just so incredibly more resilient than I could have ever imagined. Because I lost my mom young. You know, they're younger when they lost their father. So like, it's hard, and I empathize with them a lot with those situations and circumstances. But thankfully, the moments that I feel like are coming and approaching, I can approach them in a way that, not that to say that my parents did a horrible job. It's just I want to think about what didn't work for me in those situations growing up, and what I can do to make sure they don't go down any paths that I know are going to be harmful to their future, really. Because it's, as much as like, I wish I could say, yep, you know, I'm a widow, but like everything is great. I still have moments where things will just hit me, and I could just feel myself in this like emotional headspace. But the difference now is that this sadness and grief I've been able to, and still continue to, reflect on it on a very regular basis. But I have the appreciation, gratitude, love for what we had. And there's little sayings that I just kind of like remind myself at times. Though he was, you know, I was unable to spend the rest of my life with him, I'm extremely grateful that he was able to spend the rest of his with me. But one of my favorite ones I actually heard from a lady that I met when I was traveling to Greece last summer, studying the blue zones, which super passionate about blue zones, by the way. Her name was Thea, and she said some of the most incredible wisdom to me. But my favorite takeaway was in Ikaria in Greece, she says that because it's so well known with reaching into a high age because of their health and whatnot, that when people die, it's said to remember to take care of your own health so that you can remember those that you've lost. Yeah. And to me, that was powerful. That was an incredible, as soon as she said that, like, I could feel myself just bursting into tears. Yeah. Because it's powerful. Like, to live and to make them proud of what they would want you to continue to see. I feel very like, I'm a big time empath, and I feel a lot. Like, I'm very, very sensitive. So I know that the best way to honor what we had, my two treasures, like having the best, closest, tight-knit family, keeping those kids and myself as healthy as possible, and enjoying every little nuance, victory, like heartbreak, hurdle in life, whether up, down, stagnant, love it all. This is a story of your life. And this is like in contradiction to why I'm so against a lot of what diet culture shoves out with like hurry up and get it in this days and you make food this and it has to fall into this metrics. Like, we shouldn't be having this negative mindset towards this fixing our health. And like, your weight is not just like some shirt you can go and return. Like, this is you. You are in this beautiful vessel. Your soul is residing in this beautiful vessel. And if you want this vessel to last, to the age of centenarian, qualifications or not, you have to take care of it. This is your vehicle. You've got to take care of it. And like, it's not something where I never advocate for people going full bore, like full steam. It's this process of tiny habits and integrating these bits of wisdom and knowledge. Like, I imagine Lego bricks, like stacking on top of each other to continue to build and grow. Like, having that growth open mindset is super, super important with me because it affects everything, headspace, body, mindset, like everything. And my kids see it too, and they radiate with it.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I'm glad you brought up Greece because we're going to step back to that a little bit because I remember seeing that on social media that you went to Greece. So tell us about your trip to Greece.
Oh my goodness. So I went to Ikaria, Greece, which is one of the 6 blue zones in the world, as classified by Dan Buttner, the gentleman with National Geographic, that talks about blue zones. Before I even went on this trip, I think it was like the end of February I found out. So like from February until July, which was when we went, it was full on, like, I want to read every article. I wanted to watch every video.
Vicki, are you a type A personality?
Yeah, I am super nerdy. Like, my enjoyment is like watching and learning and like, what can I learn today? What can I do? What can I like grow? But the blue zones, it's just an incredible phenomenon that is just so commonsensical. Why can't it be everywhere? Because it's something where it's so conditional. Like, these areas in the world, they've learned to grow and thrive where they're planted. And to me, that's beautiful. But in Greece, I went, flew into Athens. Athens itself was a great experience, obviously going to see the Parthenon. But the culture in Athens, totally different than what you would see and experience being in Ikaria, because you have that like touristy, like European sort of Mediterranean culture. While you still have that in Ikaria, immediately landing, again, of all the wisdom and bits that I heard, the first thing that are awesome, I love this lady so much. Her name is Rania. We get on this little shuttle bus, and she goes, welcome, welcome. And she said, the first thing I want to let you all know as you're speaking and conversing with the Greeks, she said, talk less and listen more. And I get goosebumps again, woo, because these people on the island, Greek culture, and especially the resiliency of these Icarians on the island, super resilient. They withstand all these moments through their history to make them as like tenacious as they are on the island. And every little like we visited lots of these little villages around the island because it's really a small island, but we went all around the coast. And every person that we met just welcomed us. Like, I've been to friendly, like Ireland, they're friendly there. In England, for the most part, they're pretty friendly there. But these folks on Ikaria, like, every place we went, it was just like, you're in an extension. You're in your Greek auntie or Greek uncle's home kind of thing. And it felt so nice. Like, I literally feel like I have extended family in Greece. And just learning about the land, learning about why this is a blue zone, what makes it a blue zone, and why it's not just like, the place where people forget to die. Like, it's not, it's so much more than that, because everything works in so much harmony with each other, and all the villages work. We've got beekeepers and people that have sustainable, like, there's no big commercial presence on the island, and everything is small mom and pop kind of restaurants and places, little shops on the beach, cafes and things. It's unlike anything. So if you've been to Greece, or like, they think like a Greek island, no, but it's a very humbling but really uplifting and inspiring place to visit that will really, it changed my world on a lot of things. Like I was saying, with getting there initially, I feel like the concept of time really didn't exist there because of how it wasn't like lazy lackadaisical. It was just like, we know being in the moment is more more meaningful and more important than having this Western culture rush mindset.
Yeah.
They're so in the moment and so genuine with their intentions and purpose in connecting with folks. And you feel it. You feel it with every single conversation that you have with anybody. They are there. When they're with you, they are there. And that like, I feel all like the sight smells. And of course there's cats everywhere because it's Greece and that's the way the island goes. But it's like, when you're there and you're absorbing it all, your mind goes, at least for me, I was making all these mental notes like they're so kind, respectful, everybody works in harmony, these villages work harmoniously with each other. There's like hardly any road rage as, despite the roads being like super narrow. We're like a charter van that's like going around the little corner and stuff. And they're like, oh, you okay? You good? Like passing each other where, in Orlando or even downtown or anywhere here in Ocala, it's like, beep, beep. None of that.
Yeah.
Absolutely none of that. I came back and my kids even remarked on this. They're like, Mom, you're so calm and relaxed. I'm like, yeah. Took me about like a week to like slightly retense up. But anytime I want to mentally go back there, I have moments where as I said, with the way that they are, just being present and absorbing. And I took, as you saw, so many of those pictures that remind me of how I felt, mental notes that I made in those moments of like, how grateful I am for the experiences that I had each one of those days. I made remarks and notes to myself and how I can utilize the lessons that were learned these days into every conversation that I have with somebody else back in the States, and how those ripples, like I said, those ripples continue to affect and inspire just from my trip. Like I wanted my trip not just to be for me. I wanted it to be something that I share with everybody through my connecting and conversating.
Oh, that's fantastic. Mm-hmm. Well, we're almost out of time already.
What?
I
can't believe
I know.
That just flew by.
It does. It does. So is there anything else that you wanted to talk about that we did not get a chance to address?
That's okay. I am still building my process with the I'm still building the fasting focused lifestyle consulting. Mm-hmm. I am currently still with Arizona State University and getting my board certification with them, but I still am accepting folks for support and health coaching. I've walked the walk. I've lost. I don't like to say lost. I like to say shed because I'm never going to find it.
Yeah.
Over 200 pounds, 203.8 pounds in about 2 years with fasting. I've seen the changes and ripples in others, and I love hearing about the victories that others have with this process. So that would be the other thing that I share, that I am accepting folks for their health and consulting if they need it. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter where you are, doesn't matter what walk of life or stage of life you're at. You can change your life with this lifestyle. I'm living proof of it, and I want other folks to know that they can, I'm Glinda. I'm giving you the little reminder with you. You've got the ruby slippers too. Click, click. Like, you can do this. You can absolutely do this. I want folks to believe in themselves. I have a saying that I tell with folks what I share on my podcast, the Fasting Focused Lifestyle podcast. I always say, I believe in you, even if you don't. And I truly, truly mean that, because we need to have more coming together and more lifting each other up. Because I know that was me throughout the journey. Like, I had to lift myself up. So I want folks to know, like, you can do this. You can absolutely do this.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much.
My
for
pleasure.
joining us, Vicki.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. It was so good. And I think it's really good that the audience got to hear your story from out of your mouth and that not just the words on the paper. So
I appreciate that.
Fantastic. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. Once again, I'm Lisa Anderson, your host for the Locala podcast and publisher of Locala magazine. We'll make sure to have as many links to Vicki's podcasts and businesses that we can for you, social media, in our description. We'll also have links to the original articles, including the one where she was in the artist Q&A, so you can learn a little bit more about her art. But we want to thank you for joining us here on the podcast, where we focus on connections through stories.
I had to burn. Everything was burnt down, and I had to see the beauty within me.
Welcome to the Locala podcast, everybody. I'm Lisa Anderson, your host and publisher of Locala magazine. Well, today we have Tanisha Mills in our chair, and I'm super excited because she has a big